All right, everybody, I think we should get started. First of all, can you hear me okay? For sure you can hear my French accent. Right, my name is Jerome. I'm part of the field services organization at SolidWorks. There are also some of my coworkers here, Gagan here, Bill here. I recognize that some of you took part of the training session that Bill was handling this morning, so it's good to see you again. Today we will go through an upgrade, not only for SolidWorks, but also for EPDM, but we will be doing that in two parts. The first one will be very generic. We will cover a migration that could be applied to any product, any software. And then we'll try to go into details for an EPDM and SolidWorks migration. And obviously, to finish off, we'll have the usual question and answer session. Right. But before we start, I'd like to ask you a question. How often do you actually migrate to any new release? So could you please raise your hand if you migrate every year to the new SolidWorks version? So every year. That's quite good. Every 2 years? 3 years and more? All right. Okay, there is nothing good and nothing bad, but was just for our information, actually. Okay, generalities in terms of upgrade. We will, the following slides are basically dedicated to project management because the migration should be handled in the same way as a project itself. So it has nothing to do whether you are a small or a large company. You still need to assess some risk. You need to check whether you've got some freedom on the IT side to migrate to the new version. So these are just generalities for any migration. And starting with the usual question you may ask to yourself every year, should I upgrade? But the should is probably not the best word. The best word could be, can I upgrade to the new version? And there are actually many reasons you can't, but there are also reasons that may push you to migrate to this new version. So talking about supplier, so if you do work with supplier, you may be sending file, receiving file, and depending on the version, you may be struggling. You obviously know about this functionality that with 2013 you can save the file and it could be opened in 2012, but it's not true for all the versions, so you need to consider the background compatibility. So that was the first topic. Do you work with supplier? Do you need to exchange file with them? This is the one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is the new functionality. Will you be taking advantage of this new functionality? Will they bring something that could benefit to your company? You can check the what's new. It's a very good document, but be aware that we also have some quality project at SolidWorks that developers are working on every year. It's not always listed on what's new, but for example, it could be about performance. Every year we try to improve performance. Every year we try to improve stability of the software as well. We'll go through this topic in details in the following slide. Then resources. Like following step by step or actually, I need resources to migrate to a new version. Why? Because it couldn't be, most of the time, it couldn't be handled by one single person. It's very likely a team effort. So you need to check whether you've got the resources available. Are they skilled enough? And will you be able to use it in the time frame you allow for your migration? And then problems. You may have problems in your current version of SolidWorks or EPDM that may be fixed in the following version, or maybe not. So that may influence your choice to move to a new version. So what you should be doing is maybe going through the list of problems you've got today and ask your VAR whether or not they are fixed in the new version. Okay? Then prerequisites. Obviously, if you are not ready on the IT side, if your hardware is not compatible, your graphic card is obsolete and cannot be used with the current version of SolidWorks, you may be in trouble. It is also true on the software side. Operating system, XP, no longer compatible with current version of the product. But also, you may need to consider other products like Microsoft Office. Why Microsoft Office? Well, SolidWorks does use Excel for design tables. So this is something you have to consider as well. So it's not only hardware, graphic card, CPU, RAM, and operating system. It could be also other software such as Microsoft Office. And then third-party application, very often SolidWorks and EPDM are not the only software you are using at your company. Maybe you are using some add-ins for SolidWorks or EPDM. Make sure they are compatible. Okay, and once you've got all this information, you may be able to decide whether or not you will be moving to the next version or, well, next measured version. And now it brings us to the next question. Is Service Pack 5 the best choice when moving to any new release? Who would say, I agree with that, SP5 is the best choice? Wow. Maybe one or two people, but I think, so that means you guys think that this is not a good idea to move to SP5. Who would agree with that? That's a bad idea. And I tend to agree, and moving to SP5 is very likely a bad option. I will explain now the reason for that. So let me display this slide. Okay. This is true that very likely SP5 will contain more problem fixed than an SP0, for example. This is also true that maybe it will bring a bit more stability to the product. However, there is something else you need to consider. Let's take a gun. You've got a gun. Within the gun, you've got 5 bullets. That's SP0. If you move to SP0, you've got 5 bullets left. If you move to SP3, you've got 2 bullets left. Why am I doing this comparison? Is because in case you have a problems, if you move to SP0, that gives SolidWorks 5 bullets to kill the problems. If you move to SP3, 2 bullets. If you move to SP5, no chance. So if you move to SP5, that means you're going to be running on a product that is already obsolete. You may take advantage of a bit more stability, but is that worth it? So what I really mean here is we understand that it's not always possible to migrate to SP0 because of your environment or whatever. But the earliest, the best. As simple as that. Okay. And if you report the problems, like you have just migrated to SP3, you report the problems. Development will be working on it. You may think, okay, the other community, the other user may have reported this problem before me, and it's going to be fixed anyway. But maybe something that does not affect their business that much, like they've reported it as a low bug. And for you, that may be critical because you basically waste 1 hour per user and per day. So the business impact is maybe different across different companies, so this is something you should consider and migrate the earliest as possible, okay? And this is an example. This graph is basically from SolidWorks, but that's more or less the same for EPDM. This graph shows the stability across the service pack and the versions. It is based on the log we receive from you every day. You know that in SolidWorks you've got tools, options, and this is something like a checkbox send feedbacks to SolidWorks. If you enable that checkbox, you will be sending the logs over to us. This is wrong, that it will affect your performance. Your performance when working with SolidWorks is going to be exactly the same. What it does change is the next time you start SolidWorks and the log reached, for example, 100 kilo, it will trigger a send to our server. And with that information, we are able to measure the stability of SolidWorks every day. So we've got this kind of graph, and it is used at our development department to try to improve every day. We took in 2011 a big stability project. So what we can see from this graph is that actually a 2011 SP1 is more stable than a 2009 SP5. So if you think that you will be moving to SP5 only for stability reasons, this is not really true. It shows that, okay, in SP0 and SP1, maybe that's not the best ever, but everything needs to be balanced because SP0 may be good enough. We are talking about MTBF, mean time between failures. So the time you can run SolidWorks until a problem occurs. So in that case, you may think, you actually see that an SP2 is more or less as stable as an SP5 with the new version of SolidWorks. So we've got 2011 and 2012 here. So I just wanted to show you that graph. There isn't any value attached to that, but it gives you the trends. So you may consider that for your future releases, okay? It is also true that it happens sometimes. I wanted to give this example. 2010 SP4, for example, was less stable than the previous service pack. It may happen, but in almost 100% of cases, it is caused by one single issue. And we very often correct it in the service pack after. I wanted to take this chance to explain to you the importance of an early visibility service pack. You may think that's more or less like beta, but it's not really true. It is just to tackle this kind of issue. If you use an early visibility service pack, in most cases, it is exactly the same thing as the full service pack. In most cases, nothing changed apart, this about dialogue that says it's no longer an EV, it's a commercial service pack. So don't be afraid. Okay, this kind of situation may happen, and we will fix it in the commercial service pack. But in most cases, EV is the same as the full service pack.
Is this graph for SolidWorks or PDMworks?
It's for SolidWorks, yes. Yeah. I don't have this graph for EPDM today, but be sure that development are looking at it every day. This is an important thing. So, okay. Speaking about any migration, you need a plan. You can't afford firing the new product and see how it goes. So you need to follow a checklist, and for each single item, you need a owner for the task. You need this person to be skilled, and you need this person to be available. So once you've got the checklist with owners and tasks to complete, you can put together the agenda. And what we will recommend here is, as soon as you've got the agenda, contact your VAR and ask for approval, because the VAR knows what may happen if you forget something. So he may be able to advise and maybe update your agenda if it's not doable, for example. So do ask for help, just like a project management. You've put together your project. Let's have somebody approve it. 2 pairs of eyes better than one. We understand that you may be having problems to decide whether you take the risk to go to production or not. But in order to make sure you are not making a mistake, you should start to test the product as soon as the beta version is released. Beta is actually the best time to report issue. Why? That's very, very simple. That's only a matter of resources. Working with beta, we've got 100% of our developers that are still working on that version. As soon as we release the SP0, one part of the developers will be moving to the future version. So if we release 2014 SP0, some people will be moving to new functionality for 2015. However, during that 2-month time frame, we've got all of our developers available working on this specific workflow, this specific version. So this is very important. You take the chance to test the product at the beta. Who has already participated in the beta program? Are there anybody in that room? Okay. Okay, that's great. You basically evaluate the version, and once you've got the evaluation done, you may be able to assess what the risk is for your company, and then moving ahead with your test. Obviously, you will have 2 months may not be enough for you to complete all the tests in beta, so you will have to test for using SP0, SP1, maybe SP2, until you are ready to move to production, okay? However, as we said before, if you reach the time where SP4 is released, it's probably too late, because that means your tests are running late, and moving to the next version, to the SP5, will be too risky, as we said earlier. So we can help you, your VAR can help you and give you the date when the service pack will be released, because that's more or less the same time year after year. But if you need the date, your VAR can help, so that when you put together your agenda, you know exactly where you are going. Okay, that was for generalities regarding any EPDM and regarding any software upgrade. Now we will be moving to SolidWorks and EPDM in details. So I've got this slide that basically highlights the different items that need to be handled separately when talking about a migration. So we will go through each of them in the following slide, starting with the installation. Obviously, talking about installation involves computer, so you need to make sure you've got client and computer machines available so that you can test the installation as well. We will go through the different topics. Actually, you can check whether the requirement is fine. Are my machines okay? Is my operating system compatible? We've discussed that earlier. You need to make sure also that you've got the possibility to download the packages and to get the license you need to run your test. Your VAR can also help here. You need to decide the type of installation you will be using. I might be using the one-by-one setup, one computer after the other, or maybe I'll use an admin image or even Active Directory. Your settings, obviously, when you will be moving to a new version, you do not want to reset your settings, so make sure they're going to be upgraded. And I'm not talking about SolidWorks and EPDM settings, but check with your IT. Maybe they've got a plan to move from standard Windows profile to roaming profile. So in that situation, you may need a mechanism to update the settings and transfer them to the new session. And you need to test the procedure, and especially backup and restore. You always need the contingency when we are talking about backup. Make sure backup and restore works okay before your migration, and make sure they will be fine also when you have installed the new version, okay? You can't really afford a problem with the data, otherwise that may mean days and days of job lost. Compatibility with third-party application. Actually, I've got more question on that slide. How many of you are using an add-in for SolidWorks or EPDM that has not been developed by SolidWorks? Okay, so that's actually a lot of you. And now, how many of you are using a SolidWorks or an EPDM add-in that has been developed in-house, internally at your company? Okay, so actually it shows that most of you need to test also some of our products. If it has been developed in-house, okay, that's easy. You're going to be able to check if there is a problem. You will update the code, whatever. If not, then you will have to report the issue also to the third-party tools support. So it is important to test everything, and maybe in some cases you will have to check the compatibility metrics. I'll take the example of SmartTeam. That is also a PDM system that works with SolidWorks. SmartTeam is not compatible with the new version at SP0. You may need to wait SP1 or SP2. So in that situation, that should be part of your agenda. And as soon as the compatibility is fine, we should start testing the integration. Training, user training. That's something very, very important. I'll give you one example that we often see at SolidWorks is assembly management, large assembly. We do have some complaint where users are complaining about performance. Performance when opening large assembly, performance when working with large assembly. And in some cases, it turns out that they do not, maybe some of you do not use lightweight because of lack of knowledge. And you may think lightweight is not reliable because it creates problems. But actually, in most cases, if we start from scratch, re-explain what lightweight does behind the scene on a technical, from a technical perspective, then you will better understand, your user will better understand how to use that tool. Same thing for large assembly mode. And this is a key thing. You must train your user. You must be sure that they are up to date with the new version, new feature, and also the existing feature. Make sure they are using it correctly. And you can, train your key user. Maybe you are the key users. Maybe you are the go-to person that may help some of your user, some of the user at your company. So it is important to use key user so that there is one level that is very accessible. You can easily ask a question using a communicator, using email or whatever. Your users should start at the beta level. As soon as beta is released, maybe it's going to be important for your company to set up a classroom where they're going to have the chance to test the new version. If they test the new version, maybe they're going to enjoy some functionalities. They will make sure they work like they are willing them to do, and maybe they will also report problems to us. So that's very important to us to get their feedback. Use some best practices document. I'm sure you do have some common workflow at your company. Make sure they are documented properly. If you've got a new user that joined your company, you can just use this PDF document or whatever the support is and go through it. It will avoid a lot of questions if it's properly documented. As we said, teach the new functionalities. Make sure they are up to date with what's happening. And just to finish off on that slide, your VAR is often the best person that can help with training. They've got dedicated people that are doing that almost every day, so they know exactly how to teach new functionalities. So no migration without a proper training. Otherwise, you won't take advantage of new functionality, and you may actually see some, let's say, users that are upset because of the new version because they don't know how to use the new functionalities. Moving to the next slide, data upgrade. Why are we talking about data upgrade? Well, there is just one reason. Actually, it's very easy. It's performance. If you do not migrate your SolidWorks file format, just for your information, in SolidWorks there are streams. In SolidWorks files, it's basically streams. And certain stream needs to be updated using the new SolidWorks format. And we are talking about performance because the time it will take to open the file will be probably slower. And it is especially true talking about assemblies. As you know, if you open an assembly that has not been converted, it is impossible to open it using lightweight. So the purpose of the upgrade is just to maximize your performance so that a computer will take care of upgrading a file, and next time your user will be opening the assembly, everything will be as faster as usual. And how can you do that? Well, in case of SolidWorks, there is a SolidWorks task scheduler with a lot of options. I won't go through all these options. But on the EPDM side, you've got the file version upgrade tool. Who knows that tool? Okay. So the file version upgrade tools allows you to actually upgrade your file using different machine, using specific states. And because don't think you have to migrate your entire workgroup EPDM vault, you just need to migrate the file that you use every day.
It's really difficult though when the assemblies you work on are referencing thousands of components that you're just referencing. You're not gonna check them out and update them or anything. These files will never change in the history.
Yeah, in that situation, the file version upgrade tool will create batches that will include, I agree, all the references. But maybe there are some projects that are not dependent to the other. So I understand it's not an easy one. But what I mean here is just let's try to maximize this process. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But instead of spending maybe days converting your data, you may be able to optimize this process a little bit.
It's also possible to do upgrades and override existing solutions.
Sorry, can you say that again?
In the file version upgrade utility, it's possible to override existing
Yep.
provisions so you don't have to bump right provisions.
Yeah, it used to be impossible, but now it's definitely possible, yes. We had a big enhancement request for that. It's discussable. I tend to like the previous way it worked because you keep a record and maybe everything was fine in the previous version. Moving to the next one, you are just unlucky and there is a rebuild error. But now it is completely available, so it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to bump the version of the file. Do test that as well. It is part of the migration to test the data upgrade. As soon as beta is released, give it a go. Try it. And if there is a problem with one file or because of your vault, we need to be aware of that. Your VAR need to be aware of that. He will be reporting the problem to us, and then we'll try to fix it as soon as possible. Because if you cannot migrate your data, it may slow down the process quite significantly. So just imagine you've got an assembly that a lot of people are using, but nobody's got right permission to it. So in that situation, it is not converted, so nobody can open it using lightweight. So obviously, a lot of people are wasting time. Okay, testing. We discussed that a bit. They are mandatory. There is no space for guesses. Everything needs to be tested. And in order to do so, try to get a dedicated room where people can basically come in and test using their settings, their data. Their setting, their data, and even the same machine. When I say your machine, it's probably similar machines. So that there is no chance you will miss something because you will be exactly in the same environment. So do test existing feature, create some use case. When we advise at the field services department, when we advise our customer for a migration, we always advise you use use case. A use case is a way to follow a specific scenario and maybe measure the time it takes to complete it, maybe give some comments. So for example, I open the file in SolidWorks, I add a configuration, I do a control Q to rebuild, but I also, for example, use the menu to do so. I use my macro, then I do the check-in in EPDM, I change the state, update my variable. So it's basically one scenario that everyone can follow and make sure it works fine also with the new version. Same thing for new feature, actually. New feature, do not use the SolidWorks example to test the new feature because it's pointless. Why? Because we are sure it works. So do use your own setting and file to test the new features available in the version. Obviously, we've mentioned that, start when beta is released, and don't wait for others, report problem. Again, you may think this is so obvious that SolidWorks is aware of that. And it turns out that the most obvious problems are not reported to us. Or even in our internal mechanism, when you report a problem to us, you are attached to this problem, and if another customer is having the same issue, that will basically count as two. So this is the way development define the priority when fixing bugs. If there are 10 of you having exactly the same issue, then it will be more important than a single problem on one single drawing. So we need to know which problems you are facing. This is really important if you want to get them fixed as soon as possible. All right. So now we are talking about benchmark. The benchmark is basically a test where you measure the time it takes to complete some action. So with SolidWorks, you've got SolidWorks RX that allows you to benchmark your hardware, basically. And if you upload the result over the web, you will be able to compare your machine with another. This is also available for EPDM. We released last year a tool that is called SolidWorks Benchmark Tool. If you were at the session this morning, Bill spoke a bit about that. So this tool allows you two different things. The first thing is to benchmark your hardware as well, because you basically set up a vault using a template that we provide, and you follow a default scenario that comes with the tool. So it will basically add some file to the vault, do some check-in, change variable, modify data card, so that set a variable, do some search over this specific this specific vault, and you may be able to even test your replicated site. So if you've got a project to deploy EPDM remotely to another site, and it will rely on the bandwidth and latency, you may be able to use that tool and compare between all your replicated sites. There is nothing worse than waiting in front of a computer. If your users see a regression in terms of performance, they will come to you and complain. So for sure, no doubt about that. So we've got some tools now available. The benchmark tool can help for EPDM. So do ask your VAR. We will generate a license code for you, and you will have the chance to test it. It is also capable of creating your own scenario. You've got very complex workflow at your company. You may be using some add-ins. So it is important for you to test on your own vault. So you may be able to create your own scenario following a step-by-step, very detailed with that tool, and you will be able to baseline your installation. So I'm now working with SolidWorks EPDM 2012, and I'm planning to move to 2013. So what I will do, I will create a baseline of my 2012 setup, and as soon as I move to 2013, I can double-check that everything is fine. And if there are problems like big regression, maybe that may highlight a problem in our software, I agree, but maybe also a problem with your hardware. You've been using the same server since day one with EPDM, maybe it's time to upgrade to a new server because the hardware is obsolete. So this is something, again, that is available for you. We will be providing you with license code on demand, and your VAR will be able to help on that topic. Yeah, there is a question here.
What is the name of that program?
SolidWorks Enterprise PDM Benchmark Tool. And yeah, moving to the next slide, I would like to highlight the importance of your VAR here. Your VAR's got the knowledge. They basically migrate customer almost every day. So they know the common issue. They know how to work around them. They've got also some contact at SolidWorks. I personally know a lot of VAR. So they can ask us if they have some doubt, and we can advise. So if you involve your VAR, you will very likely have a better experience for your migration. So this is something I do recommend here. Also specifically for the training as well, because you may not have the resources to do the training internally. So as we said earlier, do involve your VAR. Okay, so actually that brings us to the last slide, whether we've got some question and answer. We've got a couple of, well, we've got some time to go through question and answer actually. So if any of you would like to share with us the experience for the last migration, feel free to go ahead. If you have any comments, anything, maybe it's time for you to raise your hand and ask the question. Yeah.
When deploying a new version of SolidWorks, do you recommend imaging computer completely? Doing a fresh install and everything?
In terms of installation, you mean?
Yeah, in terms of upgrading.
You mean uninstalling fully and reinstalling?
Wiping it completely, putting a brand new version of Windows and everything on it?
Oh, fully?
Yeah, fully
They come to clients or servers or what?
just the workstations.
Just workstation.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I would not say
You, in some cases, it really depends on the company. Maybe you've got a very complex setup. In that case, well, do try it a lot. Actually, that sounds a hard task for you to upgrade, to restart from scratch, basically. So can you really afford that?
It's not fun.
That's actually my concern. We often get the question, will that be better to uninstall SolidWorks and reinstall it instead of upgrading it directly? But here, we are talking about fully resetting your computer. If you can afford it, that will clean up the machine. Maybe you got some spyware, some different things completely out of the SolidWorks picture. So if you can afford, I would say go ahead. But I think it's not always true. How many of you would be able to completely reset the machine before you move to migration? I agree that if you can, that's great, but that's going to create a lot of headache, I think. But yeah, if you regarding this common question about uninstalling, reinstalling, you should get the same experience. If not, that means there is a problem with our setup package. It is true that in the past, we had a couple of issues, but that was actually kind of a long time ago. And I think now an upgrade is pretty reliable. But again, back to the last slide, it needs to be tested because maybe an upgrade like one-by-one machine will be fine, but because of your Active Directory using your admin image, you may face problems. And in that case, it's worth finding them early in the process.
Would the recommendation for uninstalling and reinstalling be different based on whether it was a major or a minor upgrade?
That would be exactly the same. We just update more DLLs. So again, you do need to test it just to make sure, but it's just a matter of the setup, and the setup now is quite good. So, in terms of time it takes should be considered as well. What can you do on your IT wise? I would like to know because depends on your permission. You know, you need admin privilege to upgrade. So each single environment is different. And again, yeah, needs to be tested. But to me, the upgrade package, it is pretty reliable. So I don't think you should not use it. Go for it with a test. Yes?
We're running SolidWorks 2011 in our environment. When we go to 2013, will it automatically take a customized button configuration with it, or is that something that was back up manually?
What do you mean by a customized configuration?
From what I understand, you can actually set push buttons for it, and I'm guessing it's some sort of INF file that's in the SolidWorks installation.
Maybe he's talking copy settings with it?
Yeah? Are you referring to settings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Automatically upgrade, or will you need to manually back up?
No, they're going to be upgraded the first time you open SolidWorks. If they...
Should you allow them to keep those settings?
Yeah, is it recommended to keep those settings, or should you start those settings from scratch each time?
No. It is true that it happens sometimes that because of a setting, you see something a bit strange. But in that situation, we check what the problem is and we fix it. Always keep a backup, but do not reset your setting every time you migrate to a new version. I don't think this is required.
We kind of look at it as an opportunity to reset default corporate settings that we want users to start with.
Well, you are raising a good point. If this is a new user that is using a computer from somebody else, maybe it's worth resetting. But again, same thing as a couple of minutes ago. Can you afford redoing your setting every time you migrate to a new version? It is part of the process. If you are using SolidWorks 2009 and move to 2011, your settings should be upgraded correctly. If not, then we should fix it. That's my point. It's true that in some cases, we had some problems with specific drawing using these specific settings, but that should be part of the support process. If there is something major related to the setting, we won't let SP0 go out. So to me, it is really a safe operation, and even if you face a problem, there is always a way to go back and just reset your setting, because that's a very simple operation. So don't be afraid. Don't force your settings to be reset every time. This is my approach. Yep. Let's start with you first.
I work for a government contractor, and some of our projects have to be in a certain version of SolidWorks. So we would have to have 2007, have that project in 2007, and 2011. So how is that best managed? You would need to have like folders, different PDM folders that you would say this is a 2007 folder, and this is a 2011 folder, and now we're going to 2013. Hey, how would you,
Does that involve EPDM as well?
yes.
Wow.
It's not even possible to run multiple versions.
Yeah,
You can do it with SolidWorks, not
exactly.
So,
So,
It would require whole different computers for your different environments.
It'll handle all versions PDM. Yeah. It'll
Are
handle
you
all.
asking,
But-
the file has to be at that version,
right,
not
yes.
enterprise?
Right.
So you can, as long as you're at the,
I'm sorry, say again?
Your install folder for SolidWorks need to be different. We run
Right.
right down
Yeah.
that in as well.
Yes, multiple versions, but as far
No
as like the
problems.
storing the files, so you're saying.
it all depends on how you guys want to manage it. You can create a variable that you store in the data card to mark it as a 2007 file, or the easier way would be to divide it, we have folders, or you could go one step further if you don't want to have people make a mistake where you have separate vaults. This is my 2007 vault, but that runs the,
I would do that personally, 2 volts in that situation. Otherwise, if something update a file by mistake, convert a file by mistake,
And then same thing like with the design libraries, you have to have a design library for 2011 and a design library for 2013, right?
you don't have to, you can keep only the legacy version, but back to performance, that won't be, especially if your design library involves assembly, maybe it's worth having like duplicate,
how
unfortunately.
often do those files need to be updated, like the older version files, the 2007 ones? Are they just being held for legacy, or?
Right, yes, we turned that over, and that was what they wanted it to be in. Now so we have 2007 stuff that we delivered. Now they said, okay, well, that project, the government said, okay, well, we can upgrade to 11. So I've done one portion of that project because it had changes. So modifications needed to be made, and they said I could do it in 11. So I did that one portion in 11. So now, going forward, personal, like our companies, we're upgrading to 13. So we're doing our work in 13. That needs to be in 11. That one needs to stay in 2007 in case they come back and they say.
So you may have to modify it, so.
Right.
The government certificate of debt worthiness, 2011. They don't care about a 2007 file right now, a 2008, a 2009, it better be 2011 because that's the only version the government is certifying today.
Right. That's interesting.
You really need to be changing the version of PPM, just SolidWorks alone.
Right. But as far as managing the files,
You can manage older versions of files with newer PPM.
Yeah.
And if you have, with enterprise, you're gonna have that 2007 version, so even if somebody accidentally updates it, you still have the version that was actually go back in 7.
They might need to evolve, but they might need to evolve changes. Yes, see open, see the future.
I'd like to make a kind of a general point too. Pretty specifically, my assumption was that we didn't arrive at flat food. So in all cases, we had kind of challenges. See, as mentioned in our presentations, a number of times, work with the results, maybe you have, but I want to make a general statement that SolidWorks is a great place to have conversations like this with your peers. Leverage your resellers throughout the year, ask them these difficult questions, team up with them. It's a really good way to get these kind of dialogue going.
What's the rule with PDM works? Isn't it, you can't work with files or with the versions of SolidWorks that are 2 releases lower? Or you can go back 2 releases, but it won't work with, say 13 won't work with 10.
So you should be able to go back.
The 9, 8, 7,
It's all
The
different.
file version upgrade utility
We-
in 2012.
We say
has,
2 versions actually. No.
like, multiple versions of SolidWorks that you could potentially upgrade to.
The support is up to 2 releases.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what is advised, 2 releases.
It's always that kind of solid flexibility to get better as a, I don't know if you want to leave your files behind forever.
No, I know.
Technically, you could.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a question there, yeah.
From what I've read on the forums, there's no way we're going to be able to upgrade all of our files Can't take a week off of work to upgrade it.
Well, you can't use multiple machines in the cloud version upgrade and working in a farm environment where
From what
Yeah.
I understand, though, they'll run into glitches, and it's going to take multiple passes to get through all the data.
In any case, I understand that maybe in your case that's not possible, but it doesn't mean that's the end of the world. You can migrate as much as you can over the weekend, and then on Monday do nothing, but overnight start again the process. Yes, separate in different batches. I would personally do so.
And can you do that by folder structure, or can you generate the entire list and then just start taking chunks out of it at a time, or how does that process?
I will have to be manually, unfortunately. Do you see any other way of doing that, Bill, other than manually? Create the batches so that within that time frame, we will migrate this and then continue. Because the file version upgrade tool will generate the batches itself, but you won't really have the control on it. So if it takes
but you can't
too long.
specify particular folders that you want to work on.
Yes, but this is my point. The folder is still a manual process. You will have to define which folder I will migrate on Monday, the one I will migrate on Tuesday, and so on. I agree.
If you restart one that you already didn't finish,
That means you basically kill the process in time. You can't really pause it.
Be really careful.
You see, in case it failed, the good thing with the file version upgrade tool, it allows you to carry on, but do you really want to kill the process manually? No.
some testing ahead of time to get an idea of how long the inputs are going to take. You can start with smaller chunks and get progressively larger as you get good benchmarks for how long it's taking to ensure that you don't kick something off on Friday night that's still running on Tuesday. You know, I mean, you had to, you could stop it in the middle, but we prefer not to do.
And one last question. I wouldn't prefer to do it this way, just because the amount of physical space it would take, but could you duplicate your environment and upgrade that environment, and then just rerun the files that were used during that time, and then kind of batch push it all over?
That's doable but complicated. You will have to know which file have been updated in between.
You can use the history to see which ones are touched, kind of thing. But, so you're saying you don't?
There's so much automation that we need there, customization, that it would probably ultimately result in me having a small visitor site. That sounds really complicated. And some of it's going to be unsupported. I mean, how do you get those converted files back into the vault? Now you're basically talking taking files out of one archive and copying them into the other. You overwrite those files, and it's scary a lot. I'm not going to say it can't be done, but it's not something I would like to do.
Are there documents online that instruct me how to create a new clone of my production system to test out migration or an upgrade?
Best way to get that information is through the reseller. There are some knowledge-based solutions, but I think some of them we try to keep internal because we want to make sure that when we do it, the first time you get the guidance. There's quite a bit of documentation right in on the install. You can go to the support documentation, look at the SQL setup, and there's sections in there on how to move and rename your servers, and some of that can actually be interpolated into a backup process. So you're essentially doing the same thing that says there, but you're doing it with a copy of your backup. And then to get things back up and running again, there's one particular tool you need, which is the archive service creator. Creates all the archive information of the resident stuff that tell this database to connect to this archive server and allows you to create local views and start renaming that into that.
We have upgraded it ever. So how do you handle the license file and for a test environment? How do you, let's say we go to 2014, we want to start playing for beta when it comes out. How do we upgrade our license file and not affect our users?
Talking about EPDM and SolidWorks, or just SolidWorks for now?
Let's just say SolidWorks, but EPDM.
With SolidWorks, as soon as beta is released, we've got the activation portal that is updated, And if you install and you are running on maintenance, you've got the subscription available, then by default, your serial number will be attached to the new version, so you will be able to use it. With EPDM, you need to get the license file, so you may need to contact your VAR. But talking about beta, there is one specific license that is available when you register for beta that you can use. If it's after beta, I think this license is available only for 2 or 3 months, so it will end at some point. So you will have to contact your VAR for that. Maybe it could be done actually from the activation portal as well. I've got 1 minute. Okay, because there is another session afterwards. Yeah.
And we have a break after this anyway, right?
So yeah, if you have any other question, we'll be just outside, so feel free to pop up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.